All right, you guys, we are going to try this one again. So sorry about the technical difficulties today. Hopefully everything is going to be back up and running here, and we will get our live stream going. All right, you guys. Okay, so let me try one more time to get my live chat here for you guys so I can communicate with you and see what you guys are all up to. And all right, so again, I'm not seeing the chat, so we're just gonna have to wing it today. Again, we've got some great moderators here for you guys, so if you have questions, they can help you out in the chat, and we will do our best here. So let's go ahead and get started. And like I said, you guys, we're gonna hope for the best today. But we're going to be working with our acrylic today, and we're going to be using our traditional system. So we've got our acrylic monomer, and then the powder that we're going to be using is our cover blush. Now, cover blush is actually one of my favorite colors. Let's come in nice and close so you can see. And this one it's a very soft pink, and you can't hardly tell on camera, well, maybe just a little bit, but it has just a hint of a sparkle to it, and it's absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite colors. When I used to wear acrylics all the time, this is the one that I would always wear. And now that I wear gels a lot more, I've just kind of changed it up a little bit more. So again, one of my favorite colors here. So I'm going to be showing you guys that today. All right, so we've got our products that we're going to be using. We've got our nail prepped, or ready to go here. We haven't prepped it yet. I'm just going to shorten this up a little bit. Take down that free edge. Anytime I sculpt a nail or even put on a tip, I do like to shorten up that pre-edge a little bit, so that way it's not going to interfere when I'm putting my form on or when I'm putting my tip on. So I do tend to clip that nice and short. Now I don't clip it all the way down to the hyponychium. I leave just a little bit of that natural nail for our form to kind of secure underneath, but just a little bit of that free edge. All right. Once we clip that shorter, we're going to go through and we're going to push back the cuticles. And I know I show you guys this on our trainer hands all the time, but when you are practicing on the trainer hands, still go through that that technique of pushing back the cuticles just to stay in the habit of it. You want to make sure that whatever you're practicing on the trainer hand is exactly what you're going to be doing on a real client. So don't ever skip the steps on your trainer hand. Always go through and do those same exact steps that you would be doing on a real person. That way you're always going to remember them, especially if you're a beginner. You're still trying to get into your normal routine. You're trying to figure out what your routine is. So always stay in that same rotation. So we're going to switch out our sanding band, and I always start with a clean sanding band, a brand new sanding band for every application that I do, whether it's on myself, whether it's on my trainer hand. I always want to be using a really good brand new sanding band so that you're not going to be using one that may be dull or worn down, or if you're working on clients, you don't want to be using one that you've already used on somebody else. So make sure you're always going to switch out that sanding band. Make sure you're using clean implements, clean tools all the time. So we're going to turn our electric file on here. I'm going to reposition here just a little bit. There we go. So when I'm removing shine, I've got my electric file at about 5,000 RPMs, and I'm going to work right up around that cuticle area, just very gently. Now I'm not trying to grind all the way around that cuticle area. I'm working in shorter motions. So just short little feathering motions, and then once I get to that corner, I'm going to feather my bit all the way through the whole rest of that nail. And what this is going to do is just basically break up any surface oils that are on the nail. And then if I need to, I can use the base of my bit around the side, the top of my bit around the other side, just to make sure that I've completely removed the shine. And like I was saying, break up those oils a little bit. Then we're going to use our manicure brush. We're going to dust off that nail, get as much of that dust off of there as you possibly can, so that we're going to end up with a nice clean nail. Now to really make sure that we've got a clean nail, we want to be using our swipe. Let me come back out. So our swipe is our cleanser, and I pump a little bit of that onto my manicure brush, and I use it from my manicure brush to really go through, scrub that nail. This is also going to take off those little teeny tiny pieces of dust that maybe we weren't able to get that first time with just a dry brush. So it's going to help to remove those last little bits of dust. It's also going to help to pull off any of those extra oils that were still maybe on the nail after filing. And then it's also going to help to cleanse off any germs or bacteria that are on the nail. So we're going to have a nice clean dry surface to work on here. You can see that it is, for the most part, the shine has been removed. There may be just a couple of little spots here that are still a little bit shiny. So if you need to, you can definitely go back through that one more time, dust off, and cleanse that nail one more time. So just making sure that everything is nice and clean, shine-free, germ-free, bacteria-free, dust-free. All of those things that we don't want on the nail have been removed. Now I'm going to take my forms, and today we're going to be doing just I would say an active, whoops, we lost our thumb here. We're going to be doing an active to maybe a medium length nail. So we're not going to go too wild and crazy. So I'm just going to use my regular blue forms. Now these are great for those shorter nails, those more active length nails. If you are wanting to do an extra long nail, you can use them all the way down to the end of the form, or you can use, I've just got one sitting here, or you can use those extra long forms if you're wanting to create a longer nail. But for today, we're just going to be doing, like I said, a little bit more of an active length to maybe a medium length nail. So I'm going to peel off one of our forms, and I like to take that little tab from the center and just put that right onto the back of our form here. What this is going to do, that's going to give us a little bit more durability when we roll our form and we pinch that. So it's not going to feel so flimsy feeling or anything like that. It's going to feel a little bit more sturdy. Now I'm going to take my form and I'm going to pinch together these two little silver tabs. So these tabs are what are going to secure our form together, and you want to make sure that you're pinching those together as evenly as you can get them. Okay. Today I think we're going to do maybe, I was going to do maybe like a coffin, not quite a coffin because we're not going to be doing a longer nail, but maybe a shorter coffin, maybe a tapered square. So for that length and shape, I am going to pinch the end of my form together, and that's going to give us a little bit more of that taper when we actually build out the structure of our nail. I'm going to pull apart that top part. There's a little bit of a perforation right through that top part. That's going to help you to open that up and get your form right up underneath that finger. I'm going to just press that down just a little bit. We're going to come from underneath the nail. I'm going to start at a slight downward angle. I'm going to catch that natural nail, and then I'm going to lift up on the end of my form. So that way the form is going to come straight out from the nail, and then we'll secure on the sides. Now what we want to do is we want to check our form to make sure, first of all, we want to make sure that that form is coming straight out from the finger. And if I can find my orange wood stick here, yeah, we'll just use our, oh, there it is. So to check and make sure that the form is straight, you want to make sure that it's coming straight out from that finger. So I line up, I'm just using an orange wood stick for a visual here. I line up from that back knuckle all the way through the end of that form. And by lining that up, I can now see that my form is nice and straight. The form isn't crooked or tilted or anything like that. It's coming straight off that free edge. Now, the other thing we want to check is from our side view. We want to make sure, again, that the form is straight and that it's coming straight out from that natural nail. We don't want it angling downward. We don't want it angling upward. We want that form to be coming nice and straight out from that free edge. And that's looks like where we're at. So we're going to go ahead and continue. And you guys, if like I said, I don't have my chat here with me. I'm not able to see the chat, but did anybody else recognize that I forgot my protein bond? Let us know. Did you guys notice, or were you just flowing with the flow here? Going with the flow, I guess. So I did forget to put my protein bond on. Now the way that I knew whoops, wrong way there, you guys. The way that I knew I forgot to put my protein bond on is I can still see that texture, and I can still see kind of that chalky look to our nail. So you want to make sure that you're putting your protein bond on, and once your protein bond is on, it's going to look tacky or it's going to look sticky. So if your nail is looking dry and chalky like this, that's an indication that you forgot your protein bond. Now, why is it so important that we remember our protein bond? Is because protein bond is what's going to really help our product to adhere. So you want to make sure that you're doing on an enhancement, you're going to do 2 nice even coats of protein bond all the way through that natural nail. Now, when you're working on a full set, I would start at 1 nail, go all the way through all 10 nails with 1 coat of protein bond, and then you're going to come back and you're going to do your second coat. That way it gives that first coat just a little bit of time to dry a little bit, get that really nice sticky surface, and then you can apply your second coat and get a really great coverage and good, just get a good coverage and making sure that you've got that whole entire nail coated. All right, so we've got our nail prepped, we've got our form on there. I'm gonna take my table towel and I'm gonna fold this up because it is a little bit dusty on here, so I wanna make sure that I'm working on a nice clean surface so that I don't have any dust on there or I don't pick up any debris or anything like that. Now, as I'm folding my table towel up, let me see, I'll show you guys here. I can either use this table towel on the clean side, and this is a lot of times what I'll do. If I've got our square table towels here, you can fold that up and you can use this part to wipe your brush on. Otherwise, what I do like to do is I'll take these same towels that are on my table and I will cut them up into, I don't know, this is probably about a 4 inch by 4 inch square. So if you fold up the table towels, you can cut them right on the seams and then you can fold them up again, cut them on the seam, fold it up again, cut it on the seam. So if you like to work on the smaller pieces, you can definitely cut those up. If you like a bigger area to wipe your brush on, you can use that as well. So whatever works for you, just make sure that you are using a nice clean surface on your table towel to be wiping your brush. You always want to make sure that everything on your station is nice and clean. No dust, no germs, no bacteria, no things floating around that shouldn't be floating around. Now, I've got my Dappen dish, and I was using this a little bit earlier, so I do have some monomer in there from before. I'm going to use one of my table towels and soak that up. I want to make sure that every application I do, I use nice clean monomer. I don't want to try to reuse monomer or even add monomer to what I have already in here, because you can kind of see, I think you can see that. Let's see, there you go. You can see there is a little bit of, I actually had some glitter in there from the nails I was doing earlier, and I don't want that in my Dappen dish. And I don't want that old monomer in there because as you work, when you're working with your brush, as you go into your liquid, you may have a little bit of residue from your acrylic in your brush. And when you go back into your Dappen dish, it rinses it out in that monomer. And it starts to almost thicken the monomer, not really thicken, but it does feel a little bit thicker. So always start with clean, fresh monomer. You're gonna get the best results when you work with fresh monomer every time. And I'm just gonna touch my brush to the top of my bottle, pour that down into my Dappen dish. And by touching the brush to the bottle, like I said, it's gonna pour right down into the Dappen dish. It's not gonna spill or dribble down my bottle, and it's not going to create a mess. So just one of those other quick little tricks that helps you to keep your bottles nice and clean and keep from spilling your product. All right, so we've got our liquid and we've got our cover blush. And again, our cover blush is that really pretty soft pink with just a hint of sparkle to it. Now we're gonna come in here, let me come a little bit closer for you. So when we're picking up our pearl, there we go, you guys can see. When we pick up our pearl, what I like to do is I give my brush just a little bit of a bounce into my liquid, and what that's going to do is that's actually going to press out any air bubbles that are in my brush. So when I wipe out my brush, let me show you guys this. When I wipe my brush on my towel, do you see how it starts to separate the bristles a little bit? Those bristles, they're not as tightly compacted. So let me show you here really quick. Okay, so right now the brush is nice and tightly compacted. When you wipe that out, that actually spreads apart those bristles, which allows air in between those bristles. So as we're working with our product, I do give that brush just a little bit of a press down into my liquid, and that's going to help to release any air that's trapped in between those bristles. So if you're getting little bubbles in your acrylic, that's a really quick and easy technique that can help you to let those air bubbles escape from your brush. So again, we're going to go into our liquid. I'm going to tap the back side of my brush. We're going to come in and we're going to press, bounce, bounce. Now we're going to pick up, I think that might be a little bit larger than what we need since we're going to be creating not a super long nail today. So I think I'm going to wipe that one out really quick. And then I'm going to bring my towel in so you guys can see exactly what I'm going to do here. So again, we're going to go into our liquid, press out the back. I'm going to press, bounce, bounce. Now I'm going to drain out the liquid from my brush. When I'm working on my extension and I'm building out my free edge, I want to make sure that my product isn't going to run. It's not going to flow. Let me show you what I mean by this. I just grab a form here. So if I were to pick up my pearl and just go directly onto my form, I set that on there. Now my room is actually a little bit warmer than I'm used to working with, but do you see how now that product is really starting to flow? The warmer your room is, the less it's going to flow, so just kind of keep that in mind. But it is really flowing, and I would really just have to chase that and move that to get that product where I want it. So what I'm going to do instead on that free edge, instead of just setting that pearl down, I'm going to pick up my pearl, I'm going to drain out that extra liquid onto my table towel, and then I'll set that onto my form. Now this product is going to stay a little bit more in a clay form. You can see it is starting to soften just a little bit, but it's not running like this one was. Okay, this one I'm going to have a lot more control of where that product is going. I can move it, I can mold it, I can sculpt it into whatever shape I want it. But by just draining out that little bit of monomer, it's going to help you, like I was saying, to get more of a clay form so that your product is going to be a little bit easier to control on that form. All right, so let's go ahead and build out our free edge. So again, we're going to pick up our pearl a little bit smaller. I'm going to drain out that extra liquid. We're going to set that right at the free edge, press it down. I'm going to wipe my brush again, just in case I need to get rid of any extra liquid. I'm going to start from the center. I'm going to press that pearl out to the side. If it does still feel like it's running or flowing too much, you can wipe your brush again. If your product is too wet and you need to get rid of some of that extra liquid, just go ahead and wipe your brush. That's going to help to absorb some of that liquid so that it's going to start to set a little bit better. So again, I started in the center, I worked out to the side, and then I used the edge of my brush to tuck in that sidewall. I'm going to come all the way back across, bring that other side up and in, walk that back up into that sidewall, tuck in my sides, and I think we're going to create just a little bit longer. I'm going to pinch my form a little shorter because we're not going all the way to the end of my form, but I'm just going to start to taper that product in, walking across, making sure everything is nice and even all the way from side to side. Tucking in on those edges a little bit. Again, making this not quite a coffin shape, but a little bit more of a tapered square. Using the edge of my brush to really make sure my lower arches are nice and straight, pressing my brush all the way across, making sure everything is nice and even all the way across. I'm going to wipe out my brush. And once I have everything where I want it, I'm just going to go over and smooth that out just a little bit. Again, if I need to, tuck in those edges just a little bit more, making sure everything is as perfect of a shape as I can get at this point. Now you guys, don't panic. If your shaping isn't 100% perfect, you're okay, because you're going to add more product onto this and you're also going to be filing this nail. So don't panic, just do the best that you can, tuck in those sides, try to get those as even as possible, try to get your product as even as possible, but don't panic. Okay, our next pearl that we're going to be working with is at our cuticle area. Now you guys, I'm going to show you this from the side. So when you're working on your free edge, we're trying to keep that free edge and that extension nice and thin and basically flat in line with that natural nail. So notice the angle I'm working with my brush. Here, my brush, I'm working flat. When I'm working back by my cuticle area, I don't want to work with my brush flat. I want to work with it at a slight angle. What this is going to do is it's actually going to help me to press out my product and get it nice and thin and tapered at the cuticle area, but then it's going to leave the bulk of my product through here because I'm not putting any pressure through here. If I were to use my brush flat and press my product here, you see how there's space in between. Let me see if I can show you. If you keep your brush flat, there's space in between the brush and that natural nail. So that's going to give you a ledge. It's going to give you kind of a lump right back at that cuticle area. And it's also going to flatten out your arch and your apex. By keeping your brush at more of an angle here, again, you're going to be pressing out. Let me reshape my brush here, you guys. You're going to be able to press out that cuticle area so your cuticle is nice and thin, but then it's also going to leave the bulk of your product right through here so you do get a nice arch. Now, when you're working, if I'm working like this, I don't want to angle my brush up here because that's uncomfortable for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the finger downward, and this way my brush can just come in at a natural flow. Let me turn around here. So again, keeping that finger angled downward, that's going to allow your brush to just flow right into that cuticle area. Let me come back out so you can see a little bit more of my hand placement. So again, angling that finger a little bit more downward, and then you're going to be able to press out that cuticle area. Okay? Now let's actually pick up a pearl. Now on our free edge here, we did drain out that extra liquid from our pearl because we didn't want our product to flow down here at the free edge. At our cuticle area, we do want to leave that liquid in our brush. So this way, it's going to flow nicely around our cuticle area, and then it's also going to flow down the length of the nail so that we don't have to do a whole lot of pressing and smoothing and really forcing our product into place. So for this pearl, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pick up, bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm just going to hold that for a couple of seconds. That's going to help to start the polymerization. And then I'm going to set that down at my cuticle area. Lift up. I'm going to use the point of my brush to press out that cuticle area. And you'll notice that it's going to start to flow a little bit down the length of that nail. I'm going to wipe out my brush, angle that finger a little bit more straight downward so that you can get that product to run and you can get it to flow. I'm not doing any work on this. I'm letting that product do the work for me. Once it stops flowing, I can lift up. And then I'm going to use the body of my brush to just blend that product forward. So blending on the sides and then just blend that little bit of an edge. Now, again, let's talk about brush angles, okay? As we're working on the side, I'm going to pivot my brush. If you notice the brush, there's a little bit of a crimp right through here. So that's the area that's always going to be flat towards your nail. So do you see how as I come to the side, I pivot that brush so that area is flat? It's flat here, I pivot, it's flat here. I'm not trying to use this edge here to press here, okay? That's not going to give you a nice smooth application. But by pivoting your brush on the side, you can blend out the side here. Pivot your brush on the side, you can blend out the side here. And then I just used the point of my brush, and you can see my brush is a little bit more flat. I'm not angled up at this point. I don't want to jab into that product and just drag all of that product. I keep my brush at a lower angle and just blend out the edge, okay? Now, we do have a little bit of a dip down right here, and that's okay. We're going to fill that in, but by having our brush at that angle here, we've built up that stress area, and then by bringing our brush angle down here, we've blended out that edge of it, so we still have that arch in there. We still have that high point, that apex. Now let's just go ahead and fill in the rest of that free edge. So we're going to pick up one more pearl. Okay, same thing. We're going to pick up our pearl. Now this one I give just a quick dab because I don't want it to run too much, but I also don't want it in clay form. I'm going to set that down. I'm going to blend that back up into that arch. Now, after I blend that, I'm going to turn my brush back around. And now I can use more of the body of the brush to press that out and bring that down the length of the nail. Now you guys, I do want to show you something here. I'm going to get the nail into shape, but then I'm going to show you a little bit more with the brush angles when I apply this blender pearl. And just going through, pressing that out, making sure everything is nice and even. Now I am going to turn my brush back around, Let me clean that out. You can see there's a little bit of product residue in there. I'm going to rinse that in my liquid and then just clean that out on my towel. I'm going to turn my brush around, still keep it at a slight angle, and I'm going to blend that product backwards. What this is going to do is it's going to blend my product back up into that arch, into that apex area. And then if I need to, I can pull forward. So when you're blending, kind of think about, where do I need product? Where do I want to pull product? If you need more product up here in your stress area, turn your brush around and pull back. If you need more product down on your free edge, turn your brush forward and blend forward. Okay, so whatever direction you're pulling, that's where you're pulling your product to. Okay, now same thing, as we are blending backwards, that angle, we're not flat on the nail, we're at a slight upward angle. So that's going to pull that product up into that arch. And then down here, I'm not brushing flat, I'm actually pulling at a slight downward angle so that it's going to taper my product nice and thin down to my free edge. Okay, so you guys, when you're sculpting your acrylics, your brush angle is key to getting the proper structure and the proper shape. So again, you're going to be angling here down to here. That's how you're going to be getting that perfect shape of your arch. Okay. All right, so at this point, we're going to allow this nail to set up. And when that's setting up, or when you're finished with your application, this is usually when I do a little bit of a cleanup on my station. So I cover up my powders like you saw there. And then I go through and I will clean out my brush. Now, a lot of times as I'm working or as I'm finishing up that last nail, I'll put my brush back into my monomer. And that's going to help to just soak out a little bit of any residue that might be in there or anything like that. But then you always want to make sure that you're cleaning your brush out after you're done using it. So find a nice clean spot on your table towel. I'm going to kind of tap my brush into the monomer, rinse it out a little bit. I'm going to wipe off both sides. Now again, you guys, let me wipe off the ferrule here. You can see there's a little crimp in the ferrule. That's going to show me where I need to wipe my brush. So you can see if I hold it on the side like that, the crimp is right through here. That's going to be flat. If I hold the brush on the side, you can see the crimp is right here. That's where I don't want to be wiping my brush. I don't want to be wiping it on the edge. I always want to be wiping it flat. So that way it's going to pull all of that acrylic residue or anything out of your brush, and it's going to keep it nice and clean, and it's going to keep those bristles in shape. If you start pressing and pushing on those sides and kind of on those other edges, you're going to start to push those bristles out of alignment. So always make sure when you're either applying or cleaning your brush, you're always wiping your brush flat on both sides. And then you can take your brush, I'm going to dip it just once more in the liquid, roll your brush back to a point, and then your brush is going to be nice and clean and ready to go for the next time. Okay. I also just like to give it a quick wipe just to make sure that I don't have any more liquid on the ferrule, and then just another nice tight roll to make sure that our brush is ready to go for next time. Okay. All right, I am going to set my brush off to the side here, and at this point, I generally don't empty my liquid. I know I said change out your liquid for every new application, but sometimes there's a chance that maybe you need a little bit of liquid, maybe you needed to do a little bit of a touch-up or something after you file. So I do save my liquid until I'm completely done with the service, but put your cap back on there so that you're not breathing in that acrylic as you're working. So always keep everything covered as much as you can. Throw your trash away into a closed container to make sure that, again, you're keeping that acrylic smell to a minimum. Now at this point, I'm just checking that nail to see if it's set or not. I can feel it still feels a little bit soft, maybe a little bit spongy feeling. This is actually a great time to pinch in your C-curve. So if you don't know what I mean by C-curve, if you look down the barrel of the nail, this is the curve, so that's the C-curve, so your curve in this direction. So sometimes we want to press in a little bit more of a C-curve so we get a little bit of a tighter nail, maybe a little bit better structure. And you can use, if your product is set, you can use your fingers to do that, pressing in on the sides. If you're using your fingers, make sure that you're using your 2 pointers, your 2 middles, your 2 rings, your 2 thumbs, whichever fingers you're using. Just don't use your thumb and your pointer. Do you see how as I'm pinching in on those sides with these two fingers, it's not even pressure? That's why I say use your pointers or your middles or your rings. Use the same fingers on both hands so that you get even pressure on both sides. Now, the other thing you can do is use your magic wand. So this is the same magic wand I was using to push back cuticles earlier. On the other end, if you press the handle, it's going to open up that little pincher tool, and you can set that right on the edges there. And you guys, I've completely let go. I'm letting this tool do the work for me. So it's going to press in a little bit more C-curve to this nail. Now notice it doesn't come all the way to the end here on a tapered nail like this one. So that's why a lot of times I may use that magic wand right up in that stress area, but a lot of times I will come in with my fingers like this to really press in that tapered free edge, okay? But you do have to catch this at the correct time. So at this point, my nail is starting to set up. I'm starting to hear just a little bit of a click. It still sounds kind of soft and still feels kind of soft, but you do have to be sure that you are pressing in that C-curve at the proper time, and that is before it gets too set. So with the cover blush, you do have a little bit of extra time to work with it to get that molded into place. But once it's set, once you start to hear a sharp clicking sound, so once you hear the sharp clicking sound like you're hearing on my nails, that means that your product is set and you're not going to be able to press in that C-curve. So if you are pressing a C-curve, just make sure that you are timing it correctly, okay? All right, so I've got my dust collector in here, and I am going to grab a new file, I think. And again, you guys, when you're working on real clients, you always want to make sure that you're getting, again, a clean, fresh, new file. So that way, again, just like we were talking about with our sanding band on our e-file, you're going to have the proper grit, and you're also going to have a clean, sanitary new file. Now, anytime you have a new file, you want to make sure that you're taking off those sharp edges, because a brand new file is going to have a little bit of a rough edge on the sides. I always have my prep file. Now you guys, I label my prep file, so I know that this is the only thing that I use this file for. I keep this separate from anything else, and this is all I use this file for. So I'm going to run that right across the top of my file, and then I just slightly angle it so I'm catching this little corner. So this little edge right through there, making sure to soften up all of those edges. Okay, and then I run my own hand across that just to make sure that there are no sharp edges left. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, flat across the top, slight angle to the left, a slight angle on the right, and again checking to make sure everything is nice and smooth and even. All right, I think we're good there. Still sounds just a hair on the soft side, but we're going to go ahead and take our form off. I'm just going to pinch my form together underneath, release that from the product. Now, depending on how you like to file, you can either start with your hand file, and again, this is a 150 grit, or you can go into your e-file. And I'm going to switch my e-file to my X-Cut. So my X-Cut carbide, this is a coarse carbide bit. So if you're not super comfortable, you might decide that you want to start with the hand file. But let me show you both techniques. So the first thing you're going to start filing is our perimeter. And what we mean by perimeter is our sides, our free edge, and our lower arches, okay? So for our side walls, I'm going to start with my file straight in line with that finger. Now, because we've got a more tapered nail here, I start working right up through that nail body area, and then I'm going to angle my file just a little bit to come in at that taper, okay? Now, again, you guys, we did remove those sharp edges, so these lines that you're seeing up here, that's not cutting, okay? It's just the dust. It's just the dust that's kind of creating a pattern up here as my file is going over that skin. So again, you guys, I'm showing you here on my natural, on my actual skin, my file has been seasoned, so I'm not cutting anything, okay? So I know somebody's gonna say, but it's gonna cut the skin. It's not gonna cut the skin, I promise you. Once you remove those sharp edges, it's not gonna cut the skin. Okay, so again, we're going to straighten out our sidewalls. Now notice that as I file, I put counter pressure on the other side. So I start with my file and put pressure in, but I put pressure with my thumb on the other side so that this nail doesn't wobble back and forth. The more even pressure you can use, the straighter that nail is going to be. You can see that dust, kind of that dust line. You see how nice and straight that line is going? That's going to because I've got that counter pressure there. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to use my finger on the other side here, counter pressure there, so that that finger and that nail is not wobbling back and forth. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to use both my thumb and either my ring finger, sorry you guys, my ring finger, my middle finger, whichever works for you, and I'm going to clean up and straighten up that free edge. Okay, just coming straight across. Again, by holding that on both sides, it's going to keep that nail from wobbling back and forth. If that nail is wobbling back and forth, you're going to see that I'm actually not going to get a nice straight file. Do you see where there's going to be a little bit of a gap? If I push that way, do you see that little tiny gap on the left side between the nail and the file? Same thing when I come back to the right side, there's a little gap. We want to make sure that our file is completely flush up to that finger or to that nail so that we get that nice straight free edge. Okay, so again, that's why we hold on both sides so that it's not wobbling back and forth, giving us a lopsided free edge. Okay, so sidewall, free edge. We're going to turn the finger on the side. We're going to catch our lower arch. Now lower arches, I'll show you here. You want to make sure that lower arch is coming straight out from, I'm going to show you here, whoops. You want to make sure that lower arch is coming straight out from all the way back at that cuticle area, all the way straight through that free edge, but then it's also going to be straight in line with that finger again. So at this point, let me line this up. So anything that's currently hanging or anything that's covered by my orange wood stick, that all needs to get filed off. Now, it's not a lot, and if you're working with a hand file, you may feel like you want to come in at an angle like this, but you guys see how, again, let me turn this on the side. If I come in at this angle, do you see what angle my file is coming in relation to the finger? I don't want this angle here. I want my file to come straight in line with that finger. Okay, so again, you want to make sure that you're not necessarily following the product that you've got, but you want to follow this line here. Okay, so to get that nice straight line, I'm actually going to position my file right down here, not back here. Okay, so we're going to start right here. We're going to take down that product until my file meets up with that line that we're trying to create. So right there. So now again, you see that file is straight in line with the finger, and it's coming straight out from that cuticle area all the way through down that free edge. Okay. Now, same thing on the other side. We're going to turn that finger on the other side. And again, I'm also using my fingers on top here to give that counter pressure. So again, I'm not putting too much pressure and lifting up on that natural nail. So again, coming straight out with our file. And I think we're good there. Now, if you are somebody who does use the electric file, let me turn my speed up here just a little bit. I'm going to be working at about, I would say about 14 to 15,000 RPMs. Again, if you are somebody who uses the electric file and you feel comfortable, you can do these side motion or these sidewalls, your free edge and your lower arch with the electric file. So just like I'm showing you here, you're going to push up on that right side, pull down on the left side, and come from left to right on that free edge. Now this is if you're a right-handed tech. If you're left-handed, you're going to switch to reverse. You're going to use the left-handed X cut, and then you're going to work in the opposite directions, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. Same thing on the lower arches here. You're going to turn on the side, push back into that lower arch there, and pull down on the lower arch here. Now you guys, because I've already filed these with my hand file, I don't want to go in and try to file anymore with my electric file, but just know that you don't have to start with the hand file. You can go right into that electric file if that works easier for you. Okay, now we're going to turn the finger a little bit on the side, and I'm going to work up into my cuticle area. So I'm just going to go around that cuticle area just like we were doing when we were prepping, but this is going to help to thin and taper down that product so that it's going to go flush right down to that natural nail. Okay, once we've got our cuticle, I'm going to look from the side view. Now you guys, what you're seeing right now is exactly what I'm seeing, and this is the view that I'm going to be filing from. I'm just looking down the side of the nail here so that I can file in my arch. Now notice, remember when we were talking about brush angles? I'm going to use the same angles with my E-file that I was using with my brush. Slightly angled down towards the cuticle, right back here. A little bit more flat right through here, and then at a slight upward angle through my free edge. So this is going to cut in that proper shape to our arch. Now notice I'm not coming all the way from one side all the way over to the other side. I stay right down the center and just work out to the side that I can see. If I were to bring my bit all the way over to the side here, I can't see where that client's skin is. And a lot of times what happens if you do work, or from this view you try to work all the way from side to side, chances are your bit is going to catch and it's going to wrap around. So that's why we position right down in the center and then out to the side. Now to get the rest of that nail all the way to the edge here, now you're going to look down the barrel of the nail and you're just going to pull forward. So now you can see exactly where you want that arch. You want the thickness right through here. So now we're just going to thin out those sides and even that out with what we just cut down through the arch. Okay, so you're going to be able to see it's going to start to get a little bit more thinned, a little bit more tapered right through that free edge. Take that down a little bit more. And then I'm going to flow all the way from one side, all the way, nice long strokes all the way through there to the other side. And notice how I use the base of my bit on the right side here, up into the middle part of my bit, and then down to the top part of my bit. So I'm using all the different areas of my bit to really get that nice taper all the way through that nail. Okay? All right, I'm going to look one last time. I usually go one last time from that side view just to make sure that my arch is exactly where I want it, and really making sure everything is contoured how I need it to be. And I think, whoops, finger got stuck in there. I think we are looking good here. So I'm going to switch my bit again back to that sanding band that we were using to prep the nails. Same sanding band, but this time I'm going to turn my speed now to about 7,000 RPMs, and I'm going to maybe about 6 to 7. I'm going to use this bit in all of those same motions. So again, right up around my cuticle area, looking from the side view, all the way from the center to the sides. And then I'm going to look down the barrel again. Now, what I'm doing with this is just refining. Could you go right into your hand file? Yes, you could definitely go right to your hand file if you want to skip this step. But for me, it's a lot easier to do as much of my filing as I can with my electric file. So that way I don't have to use my hand file quite so much. Okay, so for me, it is just a little bit easier to get things really nice and tapered, nice and perfected. And then I can just go through with my hand file to really clean everything up. And that's what we're going to do now. So we've already gone through and given ourselves a preliminary shape, but I do go through and clean up all of those same sides again. So sidewall, free edge, check that lower arch on our side here, make sure everything's good, check that lower arch on our side here, make sure everything's good. And then I'm going to come up around my cuticle area in rounded strokes. Now guys, let me back out the camera here. Rounding those strokes, I'm not just filing flat like this. I'm actually coming from the side up and around, up and around. And that's going to really help to taper in that cuticle area and round in those sidewalls so that you don't have a square edge. Okay, so again, just rounding in, customizing everything, tapering everything in. Same thing on the right side here. Really just making sure everything is nice and smooth. I'm going to look from the side view. Now again, you guys, what you're seeing is exactly what I'm seeing. But I'm going to position my file and I'm going to put pressure with my file down here on the free edge, and I'm going to file backwards. Now, remember what we were talking with our angles. I'm not filing with my file flat. I don't want to take out that arch. So instead of filing flat, let me see if I can get you guys a good angle. I'm not filing flat. I'm angling my file just slightly. Let me come in a little bit. Let's see if I can get you a good angle. So again, I'm not filing flat and taking out that arch. I'm angling my file just slightly here, so it's going to take off more of the product at the free edge, but it's not going to even touch that stress area. And what this is going to do, this is just going to help to taper in that free edge just a little bit. So it's a little bit thinner down here. My client is going to be able to actually pick things up and use her nails, you know, to pick those quarters up off of the floor. But it's not going to take down my stress area or the support on the nail. Again, I'm using my finger underneath to balance, so I'm not putting too much pressure on that nail when I file. And I think we're nice and tapered now. Now the last way that I'm going to check my nails, and you guys make sure that you're always checking the nails from all different angles. So when you're looking from here, you're going to be looking straight on the nail. You're going to look from the left side. You're going to look from the right side. You're going to look straight down the barrel. And then you're going to turn that hand around and you're going to look at that client's hand from this view. Okay, this is going to show you, is it straight? Do we need to straighten out any edges? Do we need to straighten out that free edge? This is going to give you a whole different view from what you were looking at straight on. Okay, we're also going to look backwards down the barrel of this nail. And again, I'm just going to flow my file all the way through, really making sure that right now, let's see, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I do have my side over here is just a little bit higher right through there. So I want to make sure that I'm taking that down so that it's nice and even all the way through that whole free edge. So again, just taking a little bit of that product from the top. And I think we are good. Now you guys, do you see how I put my hand behind there? When you've got the white table towels here, it's sometimes hard to tell. So sometimes you need a darker background to actually really see what's going on with that nail. So don't be afraid to, you know, put your hand behind there. Let me readjust here, you guys. Or I always told my clients, I appreciate it if you wear a dark colored shirt, because that way that darker colored shirt is going to give you that background so that you can maybe hold that nail up there and use that as their background so that you're not looking at the white table towels behind you. All right, I think we're good there. So everything is looking nice and straight, nice and even. I think we are good all the way through. Okay, so at this point, you guys, I didn't even turn on my dust collector. I was wondering why my hands were so dusty. Oh my goodness. So you guys, make sure you're using your dust collector. I got so busy trying to teach you guys what to do, I forgot about the dust collector. All right, let's go ahead and dust our nails off, and we'll cleanse these really quick. And again, we're going to go back to our swipe, that same cleanser that we were using earlier. Pump a little bit of that onto your manicure brush. Give that nail a really nice scrub, even underneath. Clean out all of that dust from underneath. And then we're going to again let this nail dry. Now we're going to do a really quick and easy design, kind of a springy design. If you're an Easter person, you could definitely wear this for Easter, but we're going to be applying our gel products on top of this, so a gel polish on top. So we're going to use another coat of our Protein Bond, and Protein Bond is going to give this nail a really nice sticky surface. Now notice, you guys, we didn't do any buffing. We didn't use our buffer to smooth this out. We don't need to. All we need to do is apply a coat of Protein Bond, and this is going to give the best adhesion. Now, you generally don't want to use your buffers because that's actually going to smooth out the surface a little bit too much. So you don't necessarily need that super smooth finish. We're going to get a nice smooth finish with our gel polishes. All right, so the colors that I'm going to be using today, these are a couple of our sheer colors. So we've got Fickle, Pickle, and you guys, let me show you what these colors are. I'm going to grab my little ceramic tile here. I'm just going to clean that off really quick, make sure I don't have any dust on there. And again, make sure that's nice and dry. But let me show you what colors we're going to be using today. But again, they're kind of springy and they are sheer. So we are going to see a little bit of that sparkle underneath there. Okay. So Fickle Pickle is our really pretty kind of a yellow green. I'm going to call it a spring green because that's kind of what I'm feeling. And then we've got Frog Opera, which again, another sheer. This one's a little bit more, I'm not going to say grassy green, but it's a little closer to grassy green. And then we've got Whatever You Like. Now you guys, I'm not telling you to use whatever you like. I'm telling you the name of our color is Whatever You Like. But really, use whatever you like, however you want to interpret that. So just a fun fuchsia pink kind of a color. Now what we're going to do is, again, something really, really easy. I'm just going to take all three of my colors, and I didn't just grab my tile because I wanted to show you the colors on there. I actually am going to use this for a way to clean out my brushes. So I'm going to blend some colors together on the nail, and we're going to start with just right up by that cuticle area and just feather that through. Now we're going to apply our second color. And when we're applying our second color, it's very possible that this color and this brush is touching those other colors. So that's why I've got my tile. So I'm going to give that brush just a quick little wipe before I put it back into the bottle. As you can see, if you look really close, it did catch a little bit of that pink. So I didn't want that, that other color to go back into the bottle and contaminate the rest of my color. So it's a good idea to have the ceramic tile here just so you don't get any other colors mixing in the bottles that you don't want to do. And our third color, again, whoops, I got a little bit on that cuticle area. I'm going to make sure to clean that up, but just blending those colors together. And again, I'm going to wipe that onto my tile. I'm going to grab my orange wood stick here. You guys, make sure if you do accidentally get any product on the skin, make sure that you do clean that off right away and that you're not overexposing your client to any products, and that you're not curing that onto their skin while you go into the light. Okay, so we've got our colors on there, and you can let these just kind of flow together a little bit and blend a little bit. If you need to, you can grab, I've got just a little art brush here. You can grab your art brush, dab those together a little bit if you feel like you want them to blend a little bit more, or if you like more of the definition between the colors, you don't have to blend them. So just whatever you decide you want your color to look like. We're gonna put this nail into our light, and that's gonna go in there for about 30 seconds or so, just depending on how long it takes you to work on the other hand. Now, if you want your colors a little bit brighter, you could go ahead and do a second coat of the colors, but I like this really light sheer color that we're gonna get, and I think it's really pretty for the springtime. So we're just going to leave it at that. Now I'm going to take that back out. We're going to come in here and we're going to do a stamped on design. So we're going to use one of our stamping plates. But before we put our design on, I don't want to be working over this tacky surface. So when our gel polishes cure, they do have a tacky surface, and it's really hard to stamp. It's next to impossible, I'll just say that. You don't want to stamp over this tacky surface. So I'm going to coat these with our matte non-tack top coat, and that's going to seal in our color. And this way, when we go to do our stamping, we're going to be working on a matte surface rather than that sticky or a tacky or textured surface. The matte top coat is just going to give us a really good background to work on. It's not going to change or affect the colors or anything. It's just going to give us that matte surface to apply our stamp onto. Again, make sure if you accidentally get any product on the skin, clean that off. This time I am going to put the hand in there for a full 60-second cure. Just got to make sure my timer is set to 60. Looks like it is. So we want to make sure that our matte top coat is fully cured, so that again we're not working over a tacky or a tacky surface. Now in the meantime, I'm going to grab my tile, or my stamping plate. Guys, I'm struggling for words today. But I'm going to make sure that all of my tools here are nice and clean. So I am going to grab my Onto the Next polish remover and just one of our lint-free wipes. So we're going to take a little bit of that polish remover. I'm going to go through and really make sure that my plate is nice and clean so that I don't have any residue from past applications or anything on there that's maybe going to be stuck in the design that could mess up the design. So really making sure everything is nice and clean. And I'm also going to grab my stamping tool and my stamping tool cleaner. And you guys, just little sticky papers here, but I always want to make sure that I'm working with a nice clean stamping tool so that there's no dust or anything on there. I'm just going to run that right over the top. So we've got that, we've got our tool, we've got our little scraper card. I'm going to also clean that off with a little bit of the polish remover, make sure that there's no other residual polish on there. And then I'm going to grab my Young Nails polish, and we've got our white today. This one is called Heaven Help Me. And I love using the white. I think it's an absolutely beautiful color for stamping because I feel like it's going to give you really good definition all the time. So I've got everything ready to go, and that's really important when you're stamping because you have to work quick. So I've got everything ready to go. You can see our nail now is cured out. There is no tacky surface to this. We don't have to cleanse anything because it's a no tack top coat. And so we are just all ready to go. So let's go ahead and do our stamp. And you guys, I chose one of our little flower designs. I think, again, for the springtime, I think these are really fun. They're super cute. And having this beautiful color background, I think, is just going to be a great combination. So we're going to take our color, and you guys, I always make sure that my colors are mixed up really well, so give those a good shake. This is an air dry polish, so this is not a gel polish. So again, you do have to work quickly because it can dry pretty fast. So that's why I have everything all ready to go. So what we're going to do, I'm going to put my polish on. I'm going to scrape my card. I'm going to give it a quick wipe so that it doesn't get a lot of buildup on it. So again, scrape, wipe. I'm going to use my stamper. I'm going to pick up my stamp and then go right onto the nail. And it does have to go that quickly because, again, if you either scrape too many times or wait too long before you pick up with your stamper, the color may dry in the plate. Or if you wait too long and it's on your stamper and you wait too long to actually put it onto the nail, it can dry onto the scrape or onto the stamper, and it may not transfer as easily. So you do have to work quickly. So we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to take a good amount of my color. Actually, let's see, what's going to be a better view? That might be a little bit better for you guys. All right, so we're going to work quick. So we're going to take our color. I'm going to polish a little bit of that on there. I'm going to scrape, wipe, use my stamper to pick up, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to position that on the nail and we're going to press that down. So you guys, you can actually see through the stamper here, so you can see exactly where you're lining up your design. Now you can see there's also a little bit of that polish that's around the edges. Not a big deal. I'm just closing up my polish here so that doesn't get dried out. And I'm going to grab one of our old art brushes. This is what I like to use for cleanup around the edges. And I'm going to go back to my onto the next polish remover. I'm going to pump a little bit of that out into the cup. And we're going to use that like a little eraser. So let me come back in here one more time. I'm going to use that polish remover just to clean up around my edges. Any of those little pieces that may be hanging off, clean those off of there. Take a little bit more of that polish remover. Again, right around the edges. So anything that's hanging off, you can clean that up. But you guys, super, super easy just to touch up around the edges. All right, I think we're good there. So we'll go ahead and top coat this. Now, because we had that matte top coat underneath and then we did our stamp, we don't necessarily need an extra coat of protein bond. Our top coat is going to adhere really nicely to our that matte finish top coat, so we're going to be good to go. I'm just trying to find my top coat. All right, we're going to use our Ultimate Finish top coat today. Those of you guys that know and love our channel here, you know that I love to use the Ultimate Finish top coat. It's probably one of my favorites because it is quick and it's easy. It's going to cure in the light for a full 60 seconds, but then it's going to leave a tack-free finish. So there's nothing that you're going to have to wipe off or cleanse at the end. So just really easy, brushing on a nice coat of that. I'm going to cure this in the light for a full 60 seconds, but you guys, usually when I do my demos here, I'm just going to freeze it into place for a few seconds so that way you guys can see the final look. But I've forgotten to remind you this whole entire time, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, show us all of the love. If you've enjoyed our lesson today, make sure that you subscribe to our channel so you can come back and join us again next time. And we generally have live streams usually about 3 times a week here on YouTube, so make sure to set those notifications so that you always know when we go live. So again, make sure to fully cure for 60 seconds, but I just did a quick cure, quick freeze into place so you guys can see that final look. So something really fun, really easy for spring or Easter, and lots of color, but just nice, soft, pretty, delicate designs. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed our lesson today. Again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, join our community, and join us back next time. Thanks, everybody.